Very good. My name is Gary Bell. I'm the Assistant Procurement Officer for our construction unit upstairs. Michael Judd, he works with the Gordian Group. He manages the job order contracting for the City of Chicago, and he's going to be discussing that information. What I'm going to be discussing is a few things. One is the Small Business Initiative and the mid-size initiative, business initiative, equal employment opportunity, and the Apprentice Utilization Bid Preference. So those four opportunities are what the city offers now, which can enhance the city's opportunity to get more minority and women-owned participation on contracts, okay? So the first one, the Small Business Initiative, now this one here is a design to encourage small business to participate in city-funded construction projects, all right, that are estimated under $3 million, but actually it's from $2 to $3 million for SBI. It's like I say, for all the small local businesses are the exclusive bidders, so in the 6 county regions, and it's 2 tiers. You got an SBI 1, and then you have an SBI 2. So the SBI 1, as I mentioned, is between 2 and 3 million. Then you also have an SBI 2, which is between 1 and 2 million. Okay, all right. Move on to the next one. All right, so the program goal is, like I say, for the MBI, so that's the other program, is designed to also increase small and mid-sized businesses. But this one, the threshold is a little higher. This is between $3 million and $10 million. Okay, and this is also for small and mid-sized local businesses as exclusive bidders. So we move on from there. So then the next one is our equal employment opportunity. Now this is in our bid specs. This is for all contracts over $100,000. And the goal is to provide an incentive to increase the utilization of minority and women-owned businesses on contracts. So any bidder that's proposing to utilize minority and journey workers and apprentices on a contract, they may apply for this incentive, okay? But they must show their commitment on this, they'll call the award criteria in the actual book 2, and that's where they would put the percentage of how much they will utilize minority and female workers on their bid. So that's the equal employment opportunity bid incentive. All right, the next one is an apprentice utilization bid incentive. So this one here is designed as an incentive for city prime contractors to utilize their apprentices for construction projects. So what is an apprentice? There's 2 definitions that they want to use for the word apprentice. It's one that is an apprentice is a training program by a contractor. That's one who's authorized by a union to sponsor that apprentice, or 2, enrolled in or graduated from a high school or a construction technology training program administered by the City of Chicago. So you have 2 different opportunities for you to be for the firm to look for apprentices for their contract. And as I mentioned earlier, these are for contracts for $100,000 or more. All right. So there's a 2-tier incentive: 1, 5 to 10% if the work is performed by the apprentice, results in a 0.5% bid incentives. If you use an apprentice for 11 to 15% of the project area subcontract works, it results in a 1% bid incentive. Okay. Oh, and then that's it. So that, now I'm going to turn it over to Mike Judd, who's going to now discuss the JOC informational.
Oh, yeah, thank you. All right, everyone. How's everyone doing today? My name is Michael Judd, and I am the account manager for Gordian. We overlook the JOC program for the City of Chicago. This is an informational session to really go over the overview of what job order contracting is, or JOC as I'm going to refer to, how you can bid as a JOC, on a JOC contract as a prime contractor, involving on the contract documents and the specifications needed to successfully bid on an umbrella contract. And then after that, procuring individual jobs post-award. So once you get that contract, how do you get jobs and how do you deliver them successfully as a contractor for the city. Along with that, any questions or open discussion that you may want to have. So first, to go over the overview of job order contracting. JOC is a part of a family of indefinite quantity, indefinite delivery contracts that was established by the federal government in the mid-1980s. The city of Chicago got JOC in 1990s to speed up their procurement process. Today there are over 2,000 JOCs nationwide with close to $2 billion worth of construction ordered annually through the JOC program. So it has evolved into a much efficient procurement process. And a couple of awards that came out of JOC. In 2005, the National Institute of Governmental Purchasing, or otherwise known as NIGP, awarded us the best of the best in the city of Miami for their implementation of the JOC program, as well as in 2015, Cook County received the National Association of Counties Award, or NACO. So to quickly go over the delivery method of how JOC works, and I'll get into this more in detail in a little while. It's just another delivery method for the city. So one important disclaimer is that it doesn't take the place of any other procurement process in the city. So for example, any in-house trades or traditional bids that may come along with the city just utilizes JOC as another way of delivering projects in a procurement method. So right here, there's the timeline. You'll see the owner, or otherwise the city, identifies a project. Once they tell you what kind of project they want to do, you go on a joint scope meeting. After the joint scope meeting, you prepare your proposal using our eGordian system. The owner reviews their proposal, and if they agree or you make revisions to it, once they agree to the proposal, then they issue a purchase order. After that, normal processes of construction start. So JOC really is just a procurement piece for that process. As far as what a JOC contract is, I made mention of this earlier today, but it's an umbrella contract. So what that means is you bid on one contract for one department, and what happens is if you get awarded that contract, they can give you any amount of jobs for any amount of price up to your contract value that you bid on. So let's say the contract is $2 million. You can get 200 projects or 10 projects that equate to $2 million. Once you get awarded this contract, like I said, part two, not only do you, as a contractor, as a prime, are able to get as many jobs as the owner requests, but you can also sub that out if you are over bombarded. So JOC brings a special opportunity for subcontractors in this market as well. So just kind of a layout of who uses JOC in the city. We have 2FM, aviation, water management, Department of Planning and Development for housing, Department of Environment. They recently switched to 2FM EHS, but it's the same thing. OEMC, the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, and the Department of Transportation. So it's really an identification of what the city uses, but we also wanted to show which other city agencies uses JOC. So, I mean, you can see all of them listed there, but the important piece of what we're doing in this City of Chicago informational session, we're not going to go into detail of all of their job work contracting uses or procurement methods. We just wanted to show you that we branch all across the city, so we are used to JOC in this platform. So it's an umbrella contract, but really job order contracts are firmed fixed prices that are competitively bid based on an indefinite quantity and delivery method for the city to produce a large number of jobs in volume. So to break that up, firm and fixed price, we have pre-established prices that are already determined using our construction task catalog. That's a benefit of JOC as it speeds up procurement because prices are already firm and they're already fixed based on union wages and the Chicago rate and the Chicago market. Competitively bid, all bidders are competitively bidding against each other contractor who bid on this contract. So it is competitively bid out to the contractors. It just depends on who gets awarded the indefinite quantity contract. An important note is that no projects are identified at the start of the project or even before the contract is awarded. You're just bidding on a JOC contract. So to kind of go over JOC in terms of a performance-based method, ultimately these measures that you see up on this slide is what you get evaluated on in a contractor evaluation throughout the JOC process. So your responsiveness to the owner, you know, throughout the entire process, getting submittals in on time, your price proposal in on time. As you can see on this list, I mean, the project development phase, your scope definition is very important, as well as timely and accurate proposals and packages for the owner. And then after that, even though JOC is a procurement piece, you still need to be on top of your game in terms of construction and completion and closeout and et cetera, because they are judging that to give you more jobs under the same umbrella contract. So it's not only the procurement you have to perform well at, it's also the construction piece. The city expects quality out of these contracts. So pretty much diving into those details, using our construction task catalog, the quality of your price proposals is very important. You have to use the line items in our construction task catalog that most utilizes to perform the work that you plan on delivering. Making sure your proposals are timely. You don't want to be a day or a week late on your proposals because there are deadlines that the city has to establish and get ready to rock. The timely construction, again, once the procurement's done, your construction needs to be quality and timely. And one very important piece is the MWBE goals. It is mandatory that you meet or exceed your MWBE goals in the city of Chicago. And also your self-performance goals. They expect you to have goals for yourself that you have to exceed as well. So there are benefits out of this JOC contract for prime contractors. It could be very profitable. I don't know if you're familiar with Uber at all, but the more Uber rides that you give, the more money you're going to get because it's volume. It's just like JOC. Even though the contract is maxed at a certain value, you're going to get a lot more jobs, a lot more people working on those jobs. People aren't going to be sitting around, and you're not going to be wasting money. So it can be very profitable. It provides a steady flow of work. So as I already alluded to, people won't be sitting around. If you have a superintendent that needs to get rolling, you can send him out or her. And you also get a long-term relationship with the city. Construction is all about relationships and who you connect with. So getting work with the city would be substantially huge for you, as well as professionally rewarding. Once you set your own performance awards, once you excel at those, it's professionally rewarding to you. The subcontractor also gets benefits out of this as well. If you're a prime and you get overloaded with 10, 15 jobs that you can't sustain, you can sub out not only to get the work done, but meet or exceed your MWBE goals as well. The problem with this, though, is that again, no projects are identified at the time of the JOC umbrella contract. So you have to be creative in what subcontractors you use. Or if you are a subcontractor, you can reach out to a prime and say, I'm ready to work if you need me to work. Multiple projects are going on at the same time, so that will occur. So, as it was mentioned earlier, but to mention it again, to find out more about JOC and the current advertisements that are on their website that the city has, not only for JOC, but other contracts as well. Sign up for those DPS alerts. There's some set up on the table out there, but if you're not here today, you can check out the DPS website at www.cityofchicago.org/procurement. And then under this, you click on the link current bids and you'll see everything open that you can bid on as a contractor. And also if you're old fashioned, you can also check the newspaper to see bids. So bidders, when you bid on a contract as a prime, you have to meet the city's requirements. If you're missing one piece of documentation, they'll throw your bid away. Bidders must also complete all the required forms in its entirety and submit here. This is where all the JOC bids are. To be successful, again, you have to be bidding all your documents correctly with quality as well. And again, you have to be realistic with yourself too. You have to be able to manage multiple projects. You have to be a good project manager if you want to bid on a job contract, because this is meant for high volume work. So you're not going to get 1 or 2 jobs at a time. It's going to be about 15, 20, maybe even more than that. But the important piece with this is that job experience is not required. What I'm here for, what my colleagues are here for, is to help train the contractors using our e-Gordian system, building your proposal in our system, using our construction task catalog, and making sure the procurement piece excels and meets your goals as well as the city. So I, as long as my colleagues, can train you on our site. So you do not need this experience. So when you bid and you get a set of contract documents in a CD, it'll show you a checklist of what you need to provide and what needs to be in the paperwork. So if you go through this checklist and make sure that all the checks are fine and knocked out, your bid should be good. Now, I don't know if you get awarded or not, but making sure that those check boxes are also quality as well. So it provides a checklist so you know what documents you need to bid or successfully bid on a job contract in Chicago. Also, as a side piece, required licenses, insurance, and bonds are specified in the contract documents and will need to be provided. So when you come here and pick up a CD based on a current bid opening, and you pop your CD into the computer, you're going to see 5 books. You're going to see instructions on how to successfully put your bid here, the city's general conditions, things that you need to accept prior to getting awarded, our construction task catalog books, so you'll already see line items and unit pricings ahead of the bid. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get jobs or look at previous jobs ahead of the bid. That just means you have access to our construction task catalog, along with the technical specifications in Book 4 to build off of. And then finally, the client specifications. So water has certain specifications, environment has certain, everybody has their own specifications that they go off of. So it's very important to review those diligently. Using our construction task catalog, again, it's a set of pre-priced construction tasks. These do not change when you get awarded the contract. There's a thing, and I'm going to get into it in the next couple slides here, an adjustment factor that relates to the E&R every year. So the unit pricing stay the same, but your factor increases, and I'll get into that. It's organized by a CSI master format, and it includes all local labor, equipment, and material. Again, specified for the city's standards and needs. Getting into Book 4 of the technical specs. To realize, I mean, you can build a proposal based on our CTC, but you really need to dive into the technical specifications to know what is involved in that line item. Every single line item should have a specification. It's important because the client can come back with a specification and say, this is what is included in this line item. This is what the price of that will be. So it's very important to also look over not only the construction task catalog, but the technical specs as well. So prices are fixed, like I said, for the duration of the contract. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. But the adjustment factor is increased on a yearly basis. So let's see if okay, so I'm going to get into the adjustment factor a little bit. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. But that, pretty much what you get awarded with the city is based on your adjustment factor, and that's mathematically calculated. The fixed increase based on the CCI published in the E&R is based off that annual adjustment factor increase every time you get awarded a contract. That'll increase after year 1, or whatever the contract documents state for the city. So, as I mentioned before, it does not give any projects or locations. You just look at the CTC and the technical specs to know kind of what the scope of work or what that certain department's going to be, so you can identify it and see if you're qualified to do that work or not. It includes renovations of facilities under the jurisdiction of the City of Chicago, and can include site work, interior renovations, and exterior renovations. JOC is a smaller renovation type work, so you're not going to be building skyscrapers. It's more of smaller construction and renovations. Typically, as I mentioned, the term of contracts is about a year with 3 additional 1-year options, which could turn into about 4 or 5 years, depending on the client. And what's important is it could have a maximum value of $2 million a year. So the verbiage in these contracts is important too, because if you got 4 terms for $2 million, then if you do a good enough job, since it is performance-based, you can earn or get $8 million worth of work. So it's very important to look over those terms and conditions in each contract for each department. So kind of 4 steps is bidding as a contractor. You need to look in the construction task catalog and determine those direct costs. Look over the CTC and specifications and the completeness and clarity of the line items that you're going to be building your proposals off of and ultimately getting your price off of. They don't include subcontractor overhead too, so you need to take that into account when you build your proposals. You need to determine if these line items in the book cover your costs, cover your subcontractor costs before you bid on a contract. You also need to bid and recognize normal working hours versus other than normal working hours. The city has normal working hours, but you have to put in a factor for other than normal working hours, because there might be some hospitals that require you to work overtime because they don't want active patients walking around during their construction. So you have to take all of that into account. And specify the EEO commitments and determine the award criteria figure. And again, the bid forms will walk you through all that. The bid forms will walk you through all that. So a couple of tips. Obviously, you need to bid correctly. Once you get the CTC and the specifications, you can kind of anticipate what kind of work you're going to get to see if you're qualified to do that work or not. It depends on each department. So each contract has its own scope of work. There are pre-bid meetings, and when those occur, there's 4 slides really determining what the scope of work is too. But again, you're not going to get specific jobs. It's just pretty much a scope of work of what that contract is going to entail. After you get that scope of work and you know if you are qualified for that work, you can run a couple sample projects. So take a couple projects that you've done in the past and build a proposal from that CTC that you picked up. After that, that's how you can determine your adjustment factor to see if the price is low or if it's higher than what you completed that project on. So kind of more getting into more detail with that. Let's say a project that has a similar scope of work to one of the departments that you're bidding on is about $82,000, right? And you were happy with that price. You got $82,323. You build your proposal from our CTC, which you'll find in the CDs here, and that equates to $75,746. The adjustment factor to adjust up or down to your price, your adjustment factor would be the price that you had your work at divided by the price that you built up your proposal in the construction task catalog. And that 1.0868 that you see on that slide is your adjustment factor for that project. Again, I mean, this is for example and informational purposes only, but that's how you determine your adjustment factor. And I would suggest that you do it on multiple other projects that you've done that have a relatable scope of work to that department. It's just an example of an Excel sheet that you can do. You can see the line items that are pulled from our book. I know it's kind of hard to see in here, but you have your unit of measure, your quantities, and the unit price. The unit price, again, doesn't change, and your adjustment factor that you bidded on the contract, and then that'll get you to your line item total. And I, again, suggest doing more than one project. You don't want to do one project, get a factor of 1, and then be stuck if you actually get awarded a contract, be stuck because you only got prepared for one job. I would do 4, 5, 6 jobs, and then take the average of those factors and kind of determine where you're at in terms of bidding on this contract. So they do vary in size too. You could be up on the previous job of $35,000, but then you build your proposal for a $150,000 project and it's low. So you really need to take all those factors into account. So in JOC, how we procure individual projects post-award. So at this point, you've been awarded, you've determined your adjustment factor, you've looked over the scope of work, you've built everything based on our CTC and technical specifications, and you get awarded. So the owner or the department in Chicago comes to you with the project they want to do. So first, what needs to happen is they introduce that project to you. I don't know if you guys remember way in the beginning, identifying a project. They identify a project with you. After that, you both go on a joint scope meeting and develop a detailed scope of work. That is also in our system. But once you finalize all the outstanding issues that get put into that detailed scope of work, the owner will approve of that and request a proposal. Now, the proposal comes from our eGordian system. So when you build your proposal, again, based on the CTC and the line items that are in the book, you can submit that for approval. Now, the department may come back at you and say, I think you may have missed out on a couple quantities, or I don't think that's the correct line item, or et cetera, et cetera. Once your revisions are done and you both agree to a proposal, then you submit a final package. Once you submit that, that package goes over here to procurement on the 8th floor, where they approve, and that includes your M&WBE estimates as well. So that includes all of the paperwork prior to actually performing that job order under this contract. Once they issue a blanket release and approval, then normal construction activities start. So this procurement piece in JOC is a lot quicker because, again, all these jobs are a lot more smaller renovation and unique in terms of larger projects that are built. So there's multiple ways of getting involved with JOC. Analyze all the JOC programs in Chicago. You can look at all the contracts that have been awarded in the past on the DPS website and identify with those scopes of work that you think you can perform. You know, like I said, the Department of Environment is going to be different and have different scopes of work than the Department of Water. So you have to recognize what department you probably would be most fitting with as a contractor. For primes, again, analyzing the CTC is ultimately the most important piece because subcontractors will not have to build these proposals. Subcontractors just give you their numbers to exceed and excel at the work. You have to build in and you have to go into the system and build your proposal. So it's very important for you to look at that. But for subcontractors, establishing a relationship with that prime is very important. If you do a very good job, because the primes get evaluated on these contracts. So when they're overloaded, they look to you for help as a subcontractor. So if you can perform the work in a timely and quality fashion under this JOC program, they're going to want to work with you further. So subcontractor opportunities are tremendous here in Chicago as well. So feel free to contact prime contractors who have been awarded. Again, you can look all this on the DPS website and see who have been awarded. Reach out to them if you're a subcontractor. You can provide a lump sum quote or a lump sum quote with a material breakdown or everything with the CSI if they do ask, but that doesn't mean you're going to have to be submitting to the department. So there are various ways that a contractor will reach out to you. Again, the departments are different and the contractors are different too. One contractor may want you to say, hey, I think this line item works best for your proposal. Another one may just want a number. So it really just depends on what contractor requires what out of their subcontractors and their terms. Although they may ask you to do that stuff, you guys as subcontractors are not bound to the prices in the CTC. So you don't have to build your proposal and say, okay, here's my number. No, you build it based on what you believe you can accomplish the work in. So you're not bound to that. And as they're advertised, it may be worthwhile to obtain a copy of the CTC. You don't have to bid on the job, but you're more than welcome to come in and pick up a CD and see what's in that CTC and specifications and what documents you're going to have to do on the next bid in Book 1 and Book 2. So, you know, I think it's very advantageous to just come pick up a CTC depending on the department. And, I mean, lastly, JOC is a performance-based contract. That's probably one of the most important pieces here. Again, through delivery, performance, quality, and timely measures. So kind of a review of everything that I talked about today. JOC is an established procurement method in the city of Chicago. It's not meant to replace traditional or any other procurement methods. It's just a more efficient and quicker procurement method. And it has benefits for all parties, owners, the department gets work done quick, their primes and subcontractors get a lot of work and a lot of volume under this contract. And for any prime contractors who may want to submit a bid, Make sure you perform the necessary legwork, like I talked about today, including the CTC, making sure you have a correct adjustment factor when you bid on a contract so you don't lose out if you get awarded. And make sure it's the department you really want to work for. Don't just bid on a contract because you need work. Really determine if your scope of work fits what that department is asking. And for subs, be aware of who's out there in terms of who has job order contracts, and feel free to reach out to those primes to get work. So Byron wasn't here today. Gary spoke on Byron's behalf, but Byron is the Assistant Deputy Procurement Officer, and that's his contact information right there. And that gentleman is my boss. He's a senior account manager. He overlooks all of the programs that I showed you earlier today. But I mainly look over the city of Chicago, and you can pick up a card here for those who are not here. My contact information is m.judd, J-U-D-D, @gordian.com, and my phone number is 312-489-7277. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Okay. So my question is, let's say the scope does have a pricing for the project, or it does not?
It does not.
It does not. So whatever we bid, that's going to be the price for a scope to be completed, right?
Yes, so each contract has different maximum values, but you don't get a scope of work for any job orders.
So how does the adjustment factor imply?
So the adjustment factor is the competitively bid piece for a job contract. The factor applies when, because your pricing and what you build your proposal off of is based off unit prices and line items in the book. So that includes labor, equipment, and material. Your adjustment factor relates to your overhead and what you can do and perform that job at. So if the line items in the book don't equate to what your cost is, then you need that factor to push you up to that cost. So that's what the factor does for you.
Do we need to obtain permits when we do the work?
Depending on the client, yes. And those will be treated as line items also in the book. In our CTC, I refer to it as the book, but it is really the construction task catalog.
And how can we get that book and the CD?
So again, you can pick up the CDs here whenever job contracts come out, and then you can look at the book. The book will be provided in all the contract documents.
So it's only when the bidding is actually happening we can come and pick them up,
Yes.
right?
Anyone else? No?
How will we know when the contracts are bidding, when you can come in and bid on the contract? Are they posted, or are they
They're posted
online?
on the Chicago website, yep.
How often do they become available?
Well, again, JOC is performance-based, so
Right.
really most contracts are 1-year base with 3 or 4 year options. So the city, if contractor A is doing a great job with the water department, they may want to extend that contractor. So really their base term ends in a year, but if they extend the option, then they won't go off a rebid. But let's say Fleet and Facilities Management isn't happy with their contractor B, they don't have to extend that option and they can post online. So really, it kind of depends on how the contractor is doing. But you can always look up on the DPS website and sign up at the alerts. And in the newspaper.
And the prime contractors, do you have a list of prime contractors that are that we can reach out to?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I can give you my card.
Okay.
And then reach out to me, and I'll shoot you that list.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Any more questions? Okay. Let me shut it down.
All right. Thanks, guys.